Hey everyone, Shaun Stevenson here, author of the Throne series, and today I'm reviewing not just one, not just two, not just three, but 4 books for you. This is a book series called the Black Hole Radio series by Ann Birdgenaw, and this is a great, fun little series. This is a series that I heard about through Readsy Discovery. I am not sponsored by Readsy Discovery. I just am one of their reviewers, so I wanted to review the next book that's coming out in the Black Hole Radio series, which is book number 5. But first, we got to talk about books 1 to 4 because they are very essential setup for book number 5. So this video is going to be about books 1 to 4. The next video is going to be about book number 5. So definitely check out both of these so you know what's up with this series. Now, I love science fiction books. I think they're a lot of fun. I have always been a big Star Trek fan and a Star Wars fan. I've loved all those old shows and movies since I was a kid. I've read a ton of the books in both of those series. So I really like sci-fi books. And I've read quite a few sci-fi books that are more modern books than those older ones that are from the 90s or earlier in Star Trek and Star Wars universes. So I was really intrigued when I saw Black Hole Radio as a series that was up for review on Readsy Discovery, so I decided to go for it. And I'm glad I did. I will admit, book 1 had me a little bit nervous, but then when I got to books 3 and 4, and then 5, I was pretty excited about this series. So let's talk about this series. This is a series that the hook is so good. It's such a great idea. This kid and his friend, so there's Hawk and Matt, and they are best friends. They have a space club, and in their garage where the space club is attached to, they one day hear a strange beeping noise coming from the garage. So they go to check it out, and it's in one of the boxes that belongs to Hawk's grandpa who's passed away. And so when they open the box, they find this old-time radio, and it suddenly sucks them into a wormhole that takes them across the galaxy. And that is the basic setup for this entire series. These two friends on adventures throughout space and the galaxy and beyond the Milky Way galaxy to other galaxies, basically in the whole universe. These two friends that are exploring different planets, having all kinds of adventures, and learning a thing or two. Now, I, for a minute or two, was wondering, what does this series remind me of? Because this is a pretty educational series in some ways. It's sort of like Magic Treehouse in a sense, where in Magic Treehouse, they go back in time to different historical events and they meet different people, and you kind of are learning about the people as you go. Even in a book series like 39 Clues, where there's a lot of adventure and action, and then you're kind of learning stuff about famous people as well. So there's like this educational aspect to it. The Black Hole Radio series also has that kind of an educational aspect to it. And so in this series, you have these two kids and later their friend Celeste, who ends up joining them, which we'll talk about Celeste here in a minute. But these two kids are learning a lot about bullies, about insects, about crystal formations, about racism, and about all different kinds of things like light patterns and prisms, all kinds of stuff they are learning about, and the reader is learning about them too. And then I had this epiphany when I was reading it because it really reminded me of the Magic School Bus. That is the vibe and flavor, because Magic School Bus is kind of silly. There's some silliness to Magic School Bus that makes you kind of laugh because like Miss Frizzle is so ridiculous sometimes and you just kind of are laughing at it a bit. And this series has that kind of silliness that I would say Magic Treehouse doesn't exactly have, and 39 Clues definitely doesn't have that kind of silliness. This series has a much more comedic tone, and once that kind of clicked into place, I started to like these books a lot more. So the first book has them going to this planet Schnurgla, where they are running into these intergalactic bullies that they have to face down, and meanwhile, back at home, they have also been facing this bully whose name is Mikey, and they are having trouble with Mikey at school. So they're learning these lessons as they're having this intergalactic adventure. The first book I would say is actually probably the weakest, and then book number 2, they go to this cyborg insect planet, which was so awesomely realized. It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed enjoyed that. And so they go to the cyborg insect planet and they're having all these adventures discovering like what's going on. And that's when we have our new friend Celeste who comes into the picture. And Celeste, what's really interesting about her character is she has in the story Asperger's syndrome. So she has Asperger's, and that is explored pretty well, I would say, in the story. And it's a perfect introduction, I think, for early readers, because that's really who this series is for. This is for early readers. It's a great chapter book for early readers, and it helps them be introduced to topics that are kind of complicated to think about. And I will say, I think this is the best I have seen an author portray a character who has Asperger's. It's not portrayed as a detriment. It's not portrayed even as a special need. It's portrayed as a part of who Celeste is, and she has unique giftings that she brings to the table because of Asperger's. And so I think that it's a really well explored piece of the pie here, and it's really well done. The other thing that's a lot of fun is after the first two books, there is the introduction of some like superpowers that these kids get. Like Matt and Hawk have ESP and Celeste has telekinesis, and so it's a lot of fun exploring some of these sci-fi elements as they go to planets. Now I will say, after book 2, there's not a lot of danger in books 1 and 2. And you get to book 3, and I was kind of thinking, okay, we've got to flip up this whole kind of plot idea here because we've kind of done the same thing twice now, so we've got to do something different. And Ann Birdgenaw does. She changes it up and switches things around. And this time there are some pretty intense villains that come into the mix in book number 3. And book number 3 also explores racism, which I thought was a really well done exploration of racism. The interesting thing about this series is Ann Birdgenaw is a Canadian author, and this series is set in Canada. And I think that that's an interesting setting to have the racism conversation for me as a person who lives in the United States, who we have our own struggles with racism throughout history that are still a problem today. And so I think this was a really great exploration of that topic for kids to read and to kind of step into thinking about how we treat one another and the ways that we are being loving or not loving towards others. I think that was a great exploration. I will say the solution in that book was a little rushed, but for an early reader, it worked really well. And then book 4 takes it up a notch even more. And I think it was really well done how she takes this whole idea of some villains and makes it even a little above, a little scarier than the last one, but not in a way that's going to be too intense or too much for a reader, because there's still a lot of lightheartedness, a lot of silliness, and a lot of comedic stuff going on. So you have this great series in the Black Hole Radio. I think this is perfect for early readers who love sci-fi stories. They also like humor. They want some silliness. You know, there's like booger aliens sometimes and things like that. So it's a little bit silly sometimes, and it kind of reminded me of some of the silliness of the Magic School Bus, but also has some great educational pieces that don't feel educational, because I think that is a trick sometimes. In some writing where it's trying to be educational, it can sometimes feel like it, and then you're thinking, oh, okay, I know what you're doing. I know why you're trying to like have us do this plot line. It's so we can learn a lesson. But I feel like the Black Hole Radio doesn't really do that. There's also some great mystery that is kind of sprinkled throughout these first 4 books about Hawk's grandpa, who has this radio, because Hawk is wondering, why didn't Grandpa ever tell me about this? Did Grandpa know about this? What is this radio? Where did it come from? And how is all of this happening? And you get little pieces of that sprinkled throughout the first 4 books. And they're all pretty short books. They're like 120 pages and sometimes have full page illustrations in there. So really, you're probably looking at a 100-page kind of book and a lot of short chapters, easy to read. It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed this series more than I thought. Like I said, I was a little worried at book number 1 thinking, oh, I don't know what I'm going to think about this because this is pretty silly and I need to wrap my head around that. But once I got to that Magic School Bus comparison, I was tracking with it. And I think books 2, 3, and 4, each book just gets better as it goes throughout the series. And it never felt like a slog. Even though I was reading up to book 5 to review for Readsy Discovery, I never felt like I was trying to slog through these books because I gotta get to book 5. They were all pretty fun to read. So, at the end of the day, I would give books 1 through 4 of Black Hole Radio a solid 4 stars. I think these were a lot of fun, perfect for early readers who love sci-fi and humor and want something that's like a light, breezy read. This is a great summer reading series, I would say, too, as it is right now, as of the recording of this video, summertime in a lot of places. So this would be a great summer reading series because there's 5 books. You can read them back to back to back, and you probably should because they do reference each other pretty often. And I think if you read these out of order or you didn't read one of the books, you would be a little bit lost by some of the references to things. I saw some reviewers complaining about that because they had jumped in on like book number 3, and I thought, well, you jumped in on book number 3. This is not an anthology series. You have to read them in order to understand the whole story. So I would definitely suggest start with book 1, power through that one if you're feeling like it's a little silly, because books 2, 3, and 4 really take it up a notch. So until next time, everybody, keep reading and check out that 5th book review coming very soon to a Shaun Stevenson Books YouTube channel near you. Bye, everybody.